in 2017, I came down with this terrible rare disorder. It's like it was basically a repetitive stress injury. It was a nerve injury from a poor desk. And now that my workers' comp case is over, I can say it might be from the swimming that I did in the past and the martial arts and other activities that I did from repetitive stress from my upper body. Anyway, I had this nerve injury and I basically was out of work for close to 4 years. So all that experience that you listed, most of that was pre 2017. And I've been in the field since the late 90s. I graduated from NYU and did all of those things throughout those years. And I rarely ran into a trans person in all of those different settings that I worked in, including foster care, including residential programs, including a locked facility in San Jose, California. It was called Starlight Adolescent Center. It's now closed down. So I worked in these settings where you would find a lot of trans people today, but they just didn't exist then. They weren't in hiding. They weren't indoctrinated at that point. They weren't on the internet, and they weren't told that that they're going to fit in and all their problems will be solved by this other thing. So that just wasn't happening back then. And then I went on this disability. I got 2 big surgeries, went through this whole health odyssey. I declined the thing and that we're both aligned on. I guess I don't know if we're on YouTube, so that's why I'm being a little censoring. I declined the COVID mandates, and that when I was finally back to work and they told me I couldn't work anymore, I decided I was going to come out and be truthful, because what I saw at my new job was, half the girls were identifying as trans. All of the stuff, the BLM stuff was really fresh. So a lot of the social justice culture, a lot of the victim mentality in kids, just in general, enabling kids to just wallow in these diagnoses as opposed to trying to get better. I was just really surprised of all of that. But yeah, it was really weird. The gender thing was stood out the most. I found the therapist really nervous talking about it. So, I came back to work. This wasn't even a thing when I left, just a couple years before. And I'm in the intake meetings. And the first thing they do is when the new kid comes in, because it was a short-term program, they come in, they'd say, what are the pronouns and what is the name of the new intake? And we didn't even talk about, we did eventually, but the first thing had to be what are the pronouns and what is the name, so that we can carry on and do the case discussion on what are the other presenting issues, what are the family issues, did they just come out of the hospital, did they make a suicide attempt, all those things. And it was so strange to watch them just be so nervous. And then, of course, we're all wearing the masks. We were wiping things down. And they weren't just going through the motions. Like, many of them are really believing in that. And they weren't saying, like, we got to stop this. This was already in 2021. We've been through this for over a year. I was there for just about 6 months until the mandate took me out. And then I decided to start to go public because I had been disabled. I still can't really work full time. That's why I'm out here doing this. I have less to lose. I'm kind of uncancelable. So, yeah.
That's a good thing
Yeah.
nowadays.
You can all, people.
But this happened very quick.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say,
I'm sorry. I think there's a little bit of a delay. I'm trying to figure it out on my end.
I was going to say, like, a lot of people always ask me, like, why are you so bold? And, they say I'm so brave. And in certain ways I am, but I have a certain circumstance and I recognize it's not what everybody has. Like, I can't work a full-time job. I've had this full career and I just can't get back to it. I can't be that supervisor anymore. I can't carry a caseload because it still hurts to sit at a desk and type and be at an 8-hour shift and do progress notes and be responsible at that level, for such high needs patients. So I just can't do that anymore. So that's how I fell into this. I felt like I was called to it.
Well, I have the same situation. I left big law. I started my own firm. And when I saw that things were not right, and I could see my colleagues probably the same way as you, I was like, oh, well, that's what the law says, or that's what the Constitution says. And I just realized very quickly that no one was speaking out and no one was admitting that that's just what the black letter law said. I too had nothing to lose. I was like, okay, YOLO, we're just going to do this here because no one else is doing it. And so it was very interesting. I've talked about this before where actually I would be so bold as to say almost all of the things in my life that I thought were negative and that I was even ashamed about or regretted, each of those things fit together perfectly to place me in the unique position to do the work that I'm doing today. Because if I was more complacent at work, or I didn't fight with my bosses or argue with them or push back, if I continued to work in big law, like I've seen many of my colleagues who pretend or want to help and they can't help because their bosses, they would get fired, or they have the biggest client, healthcare or PPE client, and they can't opine. I'm just so grateful for being as, like you're saying, just all the pieces fell into place. So can you, again, when exactly was this happening? What years again that you left and then you came back?
Yeah, so I left the beginning of 2017. Kind of the last time I worked full time was Christmas of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
That was right when Trump was elected, right when I think the country was really starting to take a turn and be more divided. And I think the media
Mm-hmm.
really got more radical at that point. And so, yeah, I tried to go back to
And
work a
so
little.
then what,
Yeah, we're having a delay. Go ahead.
yeah.
Okay.
No,
So,
go
oh,
ahead. Go ahead. Well, I was going to ask you do you know what happened?
what happened during those years? What do you mean? What's the question?
Mm-hmm.
Do I know what happened?
that you
Oh,
that when you that when you that when you left, what happened in those 3 years that you were gone that changed the way that the industry was working, that your field was working?
yeah, I wasn't aware of it while it was happening because I was so laid up and I was just consumed with my health issues. I was in a lot of pain. I was struggling day to day. I was fighting with doctors in the healthcare system for them to believe me that I even had a problem. So I was completely asleep. I called myself the Rip Van Winkle of therapists because I was asleep. So I didn't know at the time, but I realized when I came back and after I started to look into it, how much things had changed in the profession, how much the trainings, how much the academia, the grad schools, all of the CEU credits, all those things had shifted so radically to teach, of course, the gender, the all the critical race theory stuff, all this victim mentality stuff, all this identity politics. Those are the main things. Just a lot of social justice. I started when I came back and I sort of woke up to everything. I started looking at the social media of the different universities that I had attended. I looked at the social media and the websites of the National Association of Social Workers, which I was actually a member of back in the day, but now I would never go near them. They're horrible. They're just so radical. I think even a regular leftist would find them radical. That's how radical they are. And so, yeah, it's really shifted. And I don't fully understand. It very seems top down, and there's a lot of fear, and a lot of everyone just wants to be nice. A lot of therapists who I think are very empathetic, and that's being weaponized, and a lot of trusting people that trust not only themselves, they see themselves as experts, but then they trust their superiors that are teaching them this is the way. This is our manual. This is
Following
our
orders.
yeah, following orders, but not in a way where they feel some of them are going against what they believe, but I think a lot of them aren't really thinking for themselves because they feel more than they think. I'm not making therapists sound very good right now, but mhm.
No, I don't. But I think the reference to following orders, and no one likes to say it, is, I mean, that's what happened in Nazi Germany. I don't think that anybody was thinking. They were in a position. They were told that this is your role, this is your responsibility, and at least that happened certainly in COVID. Right? We had
Mhm.
this health emergency, and no one was thinking. Everyone was just following orders. Things were chaotic, and I'm sure that was the same thing that was happening in Germany. And I actually do see that happening here in the gender, this trans ideology agenda, is that they're moving the children as quickly as possible. They've obviously created this huge mental health crisis, and now they need to respond to this exploding mental health crisis, right? Which they, again, created or at least compounded over the last 4 years. And they need to get the kids on the puberty blockers. They need to get them into therapy. They need to right away before, anything else happens. And so no one is thinking. All they see is this child presenting with a serious mental condition that is clearly clearly suffering, and saying a lot of, I mean, I'll let you speak to it. At least this is what I hear from our clients. And they need to respond, or if not react, without thinking. And I think that's part of the agenda. That's part of the strategy, is to remove that opportunity to sit back and do that gut check